Republican Congressman Michael Waltz of Florida serves on many committees that deal with national security. He's also a former Green Beret commander. Congressman Waltz, always good to have you with us. Thank you very much for being here. So it was interesting to watch Vladimir Putin come out yesterday, and you could see the look on his face. He was very angry. And we've seen over the course of history how the leadership in Russia deals with people who they don't like. Sometimes they get poisoned. What did you make of the way that Putin has dealt with this situation with the exile to Belarus and allowing them to survive, at least now?
Well, clearly, Putin was between a rock and a hard place. Prigozhin and his armored column demonstrated that they were going to be able to make it to Moscow. And if the reports are correct, actually shot down 6 Russian helicopters and a fixed-wing, close air support aircraft on the way. So I think they were both knew that they didn't quite have what it took to reach their objectives. Putin and the military couldn't stop Prigozhin. Prigozhin could get to Moscow, but didn't have the forces to actually hold it. So we saw a very rare thing, which was a rival allowed to live, at least for now. What I'm watching closely is, does Putin use this, never let a good crisis go to waste, and use this crisis to clean house in his military and his Ministry of Defense, create scapegoats for their failures, and really try to make some lemonade out of lemons here.
But can he rebuild a strengthened military? They rely very heavily on this Wagner group in Russia, and we've seen what they've had to do to put together enough forces to just keep going in this battle. So, I watched all those people high-fiving Prigozhin and cheering on those tanks as they went by. So how is Putin going to thread this needle of putting back together his people?
Well, so I think 2 things that this exposed. One, that Prigozhin is a bit of a Robin Hood figure. He's the only one speaking for the average rank-and-file Russian soldier who has never had the supplies, the ammunition, and the support they need as they get fed into Putin's meat grinder. What's unclear, and I'll be looking to the intelligence community to try to answer, is how widespread has that message gone throughout the Russian military. But it was stunning to me that the headquarters of the entire war effort in Ukraine and their main logistics base in Rostov just really threw up their hands and handed the whole thing over to Prigozhin without a fight. The other thing it exposed is that 85% of Russia's military is devoted to Ukraine. They had no forces to defend Moscow. They had no forces to stop that armored column. But finally, I think the biggest thing that this is all exposed is the strategic premise that Putin has believed time was on his side, that he could just wait this out, grind this out. He had all the support he needed internally, and eventually the West would lose support politically, would get tired politically, and that eventually he would prevail. And this has shown that, no, he needs to be looking over his shoulder, and how that affects his desire to go to the negotiating table and how it affects the military forces that he may have to pull back for his own internal security is still unclear. Well,
you knew better than I that there are moments in war when there's an opening, and they're crucial. Timing is always crucial in history, right? So here's President Biden yesterday. I want to get your thought on what you believe must happen next in terms of empowering Ukraine. Here's the president.
We're going to keep assessing the fallout of this weekend's events and the implications for Russia and Ukraine. But it's still too early to reach a definitive conclusion about where this is going. The ultimate outcome of all this remains to be seen.
What do you make of it?
Well, I'm glad that his staff also, in those remarks, pulled back his irresponsible statement about regime change. Look, a stable Russia over its nuclear arsenal, the largest in the world, is in U.S. interest, but a weakened Russia that can't invade its neighbors and muck around the world is also in our interest. So the other thing I'm watching is Wagner was the force in Syria, in Africa, and Libya that were executing Putin's intent, whether it was taking over critical mines or interfering in allied governments. So that's something to watch as well.
Yeah, we'll be watching what's going on in Africa, as you point out. All of those governments, many of them propped up by the Wagner folks in those areas. So, Congressman, thank you. Always great to see you, Congressman Michael Waltz.